On the 10th of June, in the year of our Lord 2017, I undertook an expedition to Grouse Creek Lake, situated at the northern end of the Lost River Range. The day dawned cool, with scattered clouds and shrouds of mist on the horizon. Upon completion of a few final preparations, I hit the trail about 9 o'clock in the morning. The drive up the highway to the Lime Creek turnoff was uneventful, but by the time I reached the turnoff, the scattered clouds had coalesced into a dense woolly blanket covering the sky. As I made my way up the drainage, the Lime Creek road steadily degenerated from a reasonably good dirt road to a steep and rocky jeep trail. A profusion of wildflowers adorned the landscape on both sides of the road, adding festive blotches of color amidst the sagebrush and sparse desert grass. I reached the place where the map showed the road coming to an end, but the jeep trail continued up a steep incline, so I pressed on upwards, soon entering the wet, woolly layer of cloud. At length the trail topped out on a grassy saddle, and forked, with both forks leading away from my objective, so I parked there. About the time I parked, it started snowing. By this time it was about 11:30, so I ate lunch in the truck, waiting to see if the snow would abate. However, by the time I was done eating lunch, the snow had, if anything, only intensified. Striking off on foot, I soon began descending into the canyon that I would have to cross in order to enter the drainage where Grouse Creek Lake was situated. But at the rim of the canyon I came to a lingering cornice of snow, some 50 feet wide and 20 or 30 feet tall. Walking across its flat top to the rim of the cornice, I found it steep but not vertical, so I merely sat down, eased my way over the edge, and slid down to the base of the cornice. I picked up speed a good deal faster than I had anticipated on the slope, and upon impacting the frozen mud at the base of the cornice, it took me several sprinting steps to catch my balance, but I nonetheless arrested my descent safely. The hike down into the canyon and up the other side was not difficult. The canyon proved to be only a couple 100 feet deep, without any cliffs or other substantial obstacles, and there was barely a trickle of water in the bottom. After I reached the far rim, I set off across the plateau towards Grouse Creek Lake. Almost immediately I caught sight of a body of water, but upon reaching it, found it to be only a shallow water hole, and my GPS confirmed that I was not yet at the site of the lake. A little further on, however, the lake did come into view, though the view was partially obscured by snow, which was falling more heavily now and was driven by a stiff breeze. Arriving at the lake, however, I found that it, too, appeared to be little more than a glorified waterhole. It looked relatively shallow, was fed by seepage on one side, and had no visible outlet. I saw no sign of piscine life in the lake the whole time I was there, but, reasoning that the weather would have discouraged fish from feeding on the surface anyway, I nonetheless tried fishing the lake for about an hour using a weighted nymph, with no success. I then built a small fire and warmed myself by it for some time before heading back. The driving snow continued all the time I was at the lake, with only transient intermissions. However, not long after I started back, the storm began to clear. Interestingly enough, the driving snow persisted in falling for about a quarter of an hour after the sun had come out and the sky overhead had turned from gray to blue. In any case, I made it back to the truck without incident. I was a little concerned about the difficulty of climbing back up the cornice of snow that I had so easily slid down, but I had only to follow it 100 yards or so along the ridge to find a place where enough of it had melted away in order to offer easy passage across the snow. Upon returning to my truck, I carefully descended the long, steep jeep trail known as Lime Creek Road, and thereafter returned home without incident.